excited to announce the release of Acumen 8.8, and in this short video, I will cover some of the key improvements that have been made for this particular release. You can see the list there, going from performance improvements to some of the key enhancements that we've made to the risk component, as well as some compliance updates and updates to the forensics and fields tabs as well. I'm going to start with talking about the performance improvements that have been made within the way the software runs. And I think one of the really key things that we've been able to do is make Acumen Fuse run faster in this release. It's generally one of the things that people always look for is that key performance indicator. And in the testing that we've done with this newest release, this is certainly our fastest one to date. And Fuse should show you an improvement when it comes to reading the schedules and running the analytics. Part of this is also going to be that Acumen now stores the Fuse results in a workbook. So if you have an active workbook that you are loading on a regular basis, you can reload that and not have to run the analytics every time you open the new workbook. It'll save those results. So the only time you would need to rerun is if you've done something to the metrics or made adjustments to the analysis that you're running. Some of the other really key features, though, that we focused on in this particular release really pertain to risk and some of the things we've added. Most notably, one of the ones that we continue to be asked about was parallel risk mappings. And 8.8 does have that incorporated into it, so it allows you to specify if a risk is potentially going to be running in parallel with another risk, which can certainly impact the results of the Monte Carlo simulation when running risk. We've also added some better reporting capability within the model that you can export back out. So risk drivers charts now allow you to show all risk drivers as opposed to the 20 that it was limited at previously. We've added a factor in for non-work days. So if an activity shifts to a portion of the calendar where perhaps there's holiday schedules or it impacts by covering more non-work days as far as weekends, that will now be factored into the model as well. We've also added the ability to report on hierarchy nodes within the executive briefing report, which is something that we've been asked about quite a bit. So that functionality is also there in 8.8. And we'll go into a little bit of these one by one here. So when we talk about parallel risk mappings, this is probably the biggest one that I'm excited about that we've been asked about for a long time, and we've got it in this release. So this allows you to specify if there's an activity where perhaps risk 1 and 2 in the previous way it works, they run in series, as you see at the top. So if those risks both occurred in the model, you would see that 8-day impact in your results. Now you can assign it where these risks could potentially run in parallel, which of course is going to change their combined impact because the 5-day longer one in this particular example would be the full result because that other risk may run at the same time and not necessarily add on to the impact of the other risk that's the longer one there. So when we do that, you can see in this screenshot here in the bottom right, we allow you to go into whichever activities you choose that could potentially have these parallel risks assigned to them. You can click on which risk you wish to have run in this new parallel method that we can apply. And when that happens, you can see some of the differences that you can get. Here's an example of one where there's not anything in parallel. As you can see, none of the boxes are checked here. So we've got 3 risks that are hitting this particular activity. And we've got a cumulative impact in this example of 239 days. Now, if we go in and we run this same particular grouping and we've got risk 2 now running in parallel with the other ones, you can see that drops down to 128 days because it's being absorbed as part of the parallel risk model there. So just some new things that you can do in terms of the parallel risk mappings. And then there's some other enhancements within risk that we're excited about as well. You can do a risk executive briefing report now on hierarchy nodes. So previously, you could run the executive briefing report on any milestone, any activity, and you could select groupings of activities, but what that would do prior to this was it would run and show you the results for each individual activity within that grouping. Now we can actually pull out the hierarchy nodes so that you can report on certain sections of the schedule, whether it's through your WBS groupings, whether it's through a different grouping that maybe you've done off of an activity code or something to that effect. You can also run it on that and now push that out to the executive briefing report that you get out of risk. The other one that I mentioned was the ability to get more than 20 risk drivers on the tornado charts. We've had it in there for a long time. We've kind of capping it at that 20, which is what a lot of times most of the people want to see are those really the top risks that are driving impact on the schedule. But we did have a number of requests to be able to see all of the risks that are impacting. So if you have a very large risk register and you want to know, which risks are hitting, even if it's at a very small level, you can now go in and see the full list of all risks that are impacting the model. Some of the other updates we've done outside of risk are going to be done in compliance. So we've added a wizard for the import and export of the IPMDAR data. So you can now get this in a little bit more concise approach. And it also allows you to save your import-export configurations so that you can get these files in and out in a much more efficient manner. So you'll see that if you're using those particular options there. You can also have a new option in the SPD to export only the resources in use by the project being exported as well. So just a couple of other little tweaks to that to make the data easier to utilize, both getting it in and out of Acumen. We've also done a few other enhancements to the Fields tab as well as the Forensics tab. So we've added the ability to exclude certain fields that you may not want included in schedule analytics. This is one of the things that you could do prior in Acumen each time you loaded a schedule, but by having this available in the Fields tab, you can save that and as kind of a template and allow you to not have to go in and set that every time you go in and you want to exclude certain portions of the schedule from schedule analytics. And then the other one I mentioned was the forensics component. We've added some new columns that just give you a little more information on the data that you're seeing when you're looking at changes over time within the schedules. In this example that I've got on the screen here, we're looking at relationship changes, and we've added in a critical field so that you can see, if these relationships have changed, were the predecessor or successors on or off of the critical path. So just give you a little bit more data behind the results that you're getting in forensics on this particular one. So those are kind of the key highlight things that I wanted to hit in this brief introduction video for the Acumen 8.8 release. Certainly, if you want to learn more or see a demonstration on any of these core functions, please reach out to your Deltek representative. We'd be happy to set aside some time and go more in depth on this new release that is coming up on October 7th.